Okay, thank you very much. There was a little bit of misunderstanding about what this talk is about, and actually we agreed to talk about what's actually needed to accelerate compliant asset tokenization on industrial level. Yeah. In the last 2 days, we were already talking about how to leverage or how to get trust into the industry, how to get trust into the technology, how to get user-friendly interfaces, and how this actually can be put together to really accelerate this industry. Today I want to show you a little bit about the technical layer, about the underlying layer that is, we are talking about processes and how to design the processes that we can build trust not from the organizational layer and from the UI layer, but from the bottom layer, from the blockchain layer. So what you can see here actually is a comparison of how securities are transferred in the old world, in the traditional finance on the left-hand side. This process is about moving an asset from one side to the other. It's the way that was developed in the last centuries actually, because if we are talking about securities or coins or something like this, we always move something. Yeah? And is there any pointer? No, there's no pointer. Okay. What you can see here is the process, how it is working right now with the central securities depository here in this case with Clearstream in Germany. You have an investor that is ordering something and he's asking his custodian, his bank. This bank is then talking to the custodian of the issuer, and then you have the whole process, including delivery versus payment. It's about 11 steps that are needed to transfer a security, and this is the ideal stage when you only have one central depository organization in the middle. If we are talking about transferring from Switzerland to Germany, then we have 6 in between and so on. So this is a process which has a lot of steps and a lot of intermediates in between. On the right-hand side, you see what you would like to see if we're talking about DeFi, if we're talking about decentralized systems. We have a simple transfer, and what is completely different here is that we are not transferring asset from one side to the other. We are actually transferring access rights. Even if people still tend to say, I'm transferring it to your wallet, this is actually not true from the technical point of view. You are getting access to an entry in a registrar of a smart contract. This is what is actually happening technically. And this concept is the same as we are used to it for example, in real estate registers or in other registers where we tend to organize illiquid assets. Yeah, company registers, real estate registers, and this approach actually is a slow approach because without digitalization and without crypto, we are not. A lot of effort is to be taken to really identify the person that is signing the whole process, and this is what this process makes expensive and very inefficient. But this has changed now, and with the introduction of reliable cryptographic methods where the system as it can really rely on that the person that signed is really the person that is allowed to sign because he's accessing the private key. So what's needed for institutions to move forward? What we need is regulation. We need a compliant implementation for this kind of tokenization. We need standards, and then we need to integrate those standards. Yeah? Regulation, we already have. Everybody is very excited about our MiCA approach, and actually we already have the MiFID, we have the MiCA, we have the German Electronic Security Act, the eWpG, and we have the DLT pilot regime. And when we talk about compliant implementation of the German Electronic Security Act, we see main differences between the between the ecosystem that we have in DeFi with a simple ERC20, and we have to think about how to integrate AML and ATF by KYC and KYB processes. We need some processes to enable to enforce third-party rights. We need something like transparency, and we need, and that's a very important thing that people tend to ignore. We need a lot of confidentiality and privacy in the process, because not everybody wants that everybody knows which securities they hold. Yeah. So again, what actually in this traditional approach is already implemented in this approach by design, by the process itself, not technically, by the process itself. We have distributed but trusted AML. Regulated parties are trading with each other in the system, so they can trust each other, and the AML and KYC stuff actually is distributed to the issuer custodians or to the investor custodians, the banks that organize or that do the custody. They are responsible for it. So it's distributed. In the middle, the process can rely on that this is done by the appropriate parties. Yeah? We have distributed enforcement of third-party rights. So if there's some court deciding that something has to be transferred because of whatever reason, then there is a system that the authorities can access the deposit bank and just freeze the bank accounts. We have distributed transparency and investor protection. Transparency in this case means what actually is the security about. So the custodian tells the investor what it is, and they are taking over this duty. Yeah? There we have privacy by design. We have the situation that actually the investor or the issuer doesn't really know who's buying his securities, because it is all done hidden by the custodian banks and the system in between. And of course, what was missing in the very simplified graphics in the smart contract case is we have some very important thing. We have the mitigation of counterparty risk. Yeah? So the central securities depository is doing that, and it's absolutely right now we face the situation that the industry doesn't really see a reason to change this system, because the mitigation of the counterparty risk is very important, and the privacy is very important, and which is a different approach what we see in Web3 and in DeFi. Yeah? They accept a T+2 because mitigation of the counterparty risk is more important than having a quick settlement. And this is something which leads me to the conclusion: if you want to disrupt this industry, the technology has to take over and really embed that regulation and that things into the system, and we need to do that in the lowest level as possible. So how do we do this with the German Electronic Security Act? What does it actually introduce? The law introduces a crypto registrar, like was said before. It introduces a register, and what is very important, it introduces collective and single registrations of share. So if you take a step back and you see that actually this law allows things that are a mixture between the traditional way of the deposit approach and the new approach that somebody can hold his own shares by holding his private key. This is done by this is defined by the law, and what is very important too, it introduces that a cryptographic signature is valid to instruct a registrar to change or to move access between one owner or holder to the other. So actually, as Matthias said before, we can really trade without any interaction with the registrar on the level of the blockchain by signing a transaction that just moves a security to another holder. And so at least there is a potential to cover the needs of the traditional market, of the centralized finance, and the needs of the and the needs or the ideas of DeFi to trade on your own without any interaction with any intermediary. So what we need to do is we need to introduce a compliant implementation. This is what we are doing right now. We are working on it. And why do we need to do this as fast as possible? We need to do this to prevent silos, to move to real decentralization, not the way that intermediaries take over all these things I mentioned before, and that we can guarantee easy integration into systems. Without any standards, there won't be any integration into central bank and systems, and the institutions will not be able to take the next steps. Okay, when we talk about compliant implementation of the German Security Act or the eWpG, we actually talk about how to implement a smart contract. Yeah? And what we have here is actually that we already have a lot of approaches and standards in the ERC or in the Ethereum universe, like the ERC 1400 or the ERC 3643, that cover already some of the aspects I mentioned. Yeah? We have the restriction of to AML KYC wallets already in the T-Rex or the ERC 1400 with some whitelist concepts. We already have this God mode implemented that is enabling the forced transfer. But what we do not have implemented yet in those standards is the transparency, which is actually the idea that the register is always giving you the full information about what it is about. So it is about what is the security, what is, okay, the ISIN, and so on, and got it. And what is not implementing at all is confidentiality. So the privacy is not there, and that's why we are working on this kind of structure, where we have a DLT layer that has to be changed a little bit to introduce privacy. We have the tokenization layer, the smart contract. We have the trading and transfer layer, and AML and confidentiality have to really to be considered in all of these layers. So next steps. We are right now working on establishing a standard in an association, for example, of the German registrars. We are validating the use cases, and we start to integrate into existing systems. And how you can contribute is join us in the associations, contact us and discuss our approaches, challenge our approaches, so that we really can introduce a standard as fast as possible. Okay, thank you. That's it from my side.